Don't like hold that and hold this. Okay, just hold the way down.
Come on, baby, black man.
Good.
Joey, do you know how to wear it tonight? Just, so you know, we
You
usually
won.
wear it only in the morning. But we are starting before sundown, but just, so you know, we traditionally don't wear it at night unless you're leading the service. Shabbat Shalom, good to see you all. How are you? You are just a little early. Not really.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah, see, I told
Good to
you,
see
it's
you.
2 minutes
Shabbos.
outside.
Shabbat Shalom, how are you?
Easy, gentle.
I'm Chris.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Nice to meet
Good.
you.
So we're gonna drop these off to the last night. It was good.
Fine, absolutely.
It was comfortable with everything.
Yeah, I try to get to know everybody here.
Yeah, you know what you're doing. We'll grab you a prayer book too.
Oh wait, I forgot my keep at home.
We have plenty for you.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we got it, we looked through your stuff.
I
Shabbat
got
Shalom. Grabbing us. Good to see you.
Do you want to get a prayer book?
Well, welcome. You and your. Well, thank you. Yeah, for Joe's. Well, glad you're here. Come, get comfortable. Let's get you a.
I forgot.
We'll sit in this chair. We're right to Okay, it's extra special.
I know he had her from me, but it's a church.
Davey, you want to have a seat? Get comfortable? Where do you want to sit tonight? Right there? Perfect. Want me to help you put this on? You got it? Look at you. It does, hold on. How's that? Is that better?
Okay, remind me your name.
Tino.
Tina? Yep.
861 575 394. Thank you very much.
Have a good night. We'll see
Save
you
it.
soon.
Yeah, we'll see you in a little while, okay, bud? All right. Come on, Tommy.
From there, but tonight. Who is it?
This bar mitzvah is tomorrow.
You with us tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah?
Back home, yeah.
You all are where you should be. Thank you.
You work tomorrow?
Sure.
We're doing camp job tomorrow? Yeah?
I do yoga. I've been doing yoga 25 years and
Wow.
it feels good.
Yeah.
I got a new membership.
It's
Cool.
I have to wait that for my horses. Then I will see love.
How many horses?
Check, check, check. Sound better? Well, hear me
The microphone.
now? Yep, because he's coming up soon.
I'm good, thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos, Bruchim Habayim. Welcome. It's so nice to have you all here tonight. It's so nice to have this whole weekend of celebrating Ben's new status as a bar mitzvah. That'll be coming up a little bit later in our service to help us out. Hopefully everybody had a chance to grab a Siddur, a prayer book on your way in. And just a reminder, but if your prayer book happens to have 2 page numbers in the corner, you can please follow as I announce page numbers, the ones in the brackets. Then you'll be on the correct page. Let's turn together to the lighting and blessing of the Shabbat candles on page 120. And it is an honor to invite up John and Michelle Fishman to help us light. Oh wait, nope, that's not true. Sorry, nope, because you guys are sponsoring Yoneg. I am on autopilot. I'm open Joel. Yes, please come on up. See, Ben, everyone can make mistakes up here. It's totally okay. It's all good. Yeah, sure. And now we'll turn to the next part of Kabbalat Shabbat, the ways in which we receive Shabbat and welcome it into our space with Lecha Dodi on page 138. Shalom. let's remain standing and take a moment to greet the people near you. Wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
David, is David?
Yes.
Hi, Beth. Good. Yes. Yes, hi. It's David. Glad you came back. Yeah. Good.
And now we will still stay standing, and you may have noticed that Ben has come up to join us on the Bima for the next part of the service. We have a cheering section. And let's turn together page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish. Page 148.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Siva'ot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Beit Yisrael ahavta, Torah mitzvot ukim mishpatim, ozanu imadeta. Amen Adonai Eloheinu, v'shachmeinu v'chudneinu, nasi
Asher Anochi, Netzavah Yom Olodecha, Veshinatan Loreha Vigor Tabam, Veshivtecha Levetecha, Uleftecha Vaderet, Ushakbaha Ukameha, Ukshatan Leo Oyadeha, Vehayu Totafo Beneha, Uktatam, Amisisel Beteha, Uvi Shareha, Lema Tiskeru, Vesika Komisotai, Vetem Kilshin, Vehem, Ani Adonai Elohim, Asher, Savior's hand, Ne'eretz Mitzrayim, Ve'olahem Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohim. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign in your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Just inscribe them on the doorposts of your home and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God.
Page 157.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe that we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Shalom.
now the central prayer of our worship service, and I'd like to invite all who are able to please rise.
Adonai sefatati tai ufia gizei matena. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Eloheinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imachot, U'mevii Gerula L'bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol HaTorah Le'Yoshia, Mori atah, Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayeh HaKol B'Rachamim Rabbim, Somen Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, L'Shelei Afar, Mimamot Al Gevurot, Umidon Elah, Melech Me'im Tumechayem, Umasmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah v'yot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim kol yom yalucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. We now continue silently from page 180. You may be seated when you have finished your prayers.
No, you said to
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
And good Shabbos again. For those of you who have been a part of our congregation for a long time, we're really glad you decided to spend your Friday night here with us and help us to welcome in Shabbat. For those of you who are visiting or who are checking us out, we're glad you're with us. We hope you feel like you're part of our family, our mishpacha here at CBSRZ as well. Because tonight the feeling in the room is because of each individual neshama, each individual soul that is part of this space right now. In fact, we have, according to Jewish tradition, there's a belief that on Shabbat we get an extra soul, a neshama yitera, that adds to the sweetness of Shabbat. So within us, we have extra holiness, we have that extra connection to God. So I hope that as you take a deep breath and as you experience Shabbat and enjoy welcoming in the day of rest and the day of celebration, that you maybe even see if you can feel that extra little bit of holiness within you, that neshama yitera. So we're going to take a moment with all of our hearts and souls together to send prayers of healing out to family members, to community members who are ill, who are injured, who are suffering in any way. Tonight we are especially sending our prayers for a refuah shalema, a healing filled with holiness and wholeness, to Reagan Konecki, John DiNicola, Nancy Schwab, Miriam Swidler, Larry Mancini, Charles Sabat, Burl Bellows, Gary Bellows, Cindy Rashal, Dovie Goodmayer, Arthur Myers, Iris Clark, Stacy Reed, Debbie Clymer, Nan Kraszewski, Daphne Rosenberg, Heather Waters, Joyce Giuseppe, Eliyahu Ben Sara, Savannah Johnson, Ronnie Burson Weiner, Lenore Lesser, Jimmy Imbrogno, and Donald Hoffman. Who else might you be thinking about tonight and sending healing prayers to?
I know Debbie. I know Debbie.
And you can join us in sending prayers to her.
I gotta see her tonight. My God, I know she go here.
Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka le'Av Rachel v'Yivarech v'Yirapeh et kol ha'cholim ha'ela. May the one who blessed all of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, bless and heal all those who are in pain tonight, all those who are struggling, all who are suffering. We pray, God, that they experience a healing of mind, of body, of spirit, and that they return to a place of shlemut, of wholeness and peacefulness. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaCholim, we praise you, God, who cares for the sick. And let us say together, Amen. Let's turn to page 371 and join in singing Mishaberach. And and we take a moment to offer prayers of gratitude for those in our lives who have healed, who have recovered from illness or an operation, those who have traveled far away and have come back home safely, those who have escaped danger in any way. We are especially, when we say this prayer tonight, thinking of the 3 Jewish communities up in Massachusetts who have experienced what seem to be intentionally set fires. And we're very grateful that no one was injured in these fires, but we remain conscious that we must remain ever vigilant as Jews right now in our world. And so we offer a prayer to God of gratitude when people escape danger. We praise you, God, who allows good things to happen in the world around us. And let us say together, Amen. And we have smachot, thank goodness. We have simchas, we have happy occasions to celebrate. We first wish a big mazel tov to Ben and his family on the occasion of him becoming a bar mitzvah. And we are so excited to celebrate with you all this weekend and to share the bima with you as we already have begun to do. Who else has a simcha, a birthday, anniversary, something significant going on in your lives that you'd like to share? Yes, Leah.
I'm going to have my bar mitzvah too.
You're going to have your bar mitzvah too. So when is your bar mitzvah?
June 22nd.
We can't wait. June 22nd. It's going to rock. It's going to be great. Thank you. What else is going on with you? Okay, otherwise, a quiet week. That's all right. Yes, please.
Happy occasion for Art and Marcia Myers. Their condo sold today.
Oh, how wonderful. Mazel tov to Art and Marcia.
And Marcia's going to move in with Arthur.
Wonderful. We know this is of great relief to them.
It is, they were very happy today.
And that you were a great help to them as well. So mazel tov. Please pass along. If you get to them first, please wish them a mazel tov.
I will see Marcia next week. We're going to be cleaning out so she can move over to
Do
Marcia's
they
place.
need help with moving or anything?
Maybe. We'll talk after.
Okay, give me a holler.
Okay.
Your people can talk to his people.
I will, yes, we'll.
5 minutes apart.
Yes, yes,
That's true.
yes.
Good, thank you. Any other simchas? Well, friends, this week we are in a Torah portion called And More. And in it is a very curious incident. And I'd like to share with you the text of the incident and tell you why I think this week it happens to be quite poignant and an important teacher to us all. This comes from Leviticus chapter 24, starting at verse 10. There came out among the Israelites one whose mother was Israelite and whose father was Egyptian. And a fight broke out in the camp between that half-Israelite and a certain Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name of God in blasphemy. And he was brought to Moses. Now his mother's name, this man who said God's name in blasphemy, his mother's name was Shlomit, daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. And he was placed in custody until the decision of the Eternal could be made clear to them. And the Eternal spoke to Moses, saying, take the blasphemer outside the camp, and let all who were within hearing lay their hands upon his head, and let the whole community stone him. And to the Israelite people speak thus, anyone who blasphemes his God shall bear his guilt. If he also pronounces the name Adonai, the Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh pronunciation, he shall be put to death. The whole community shall stone him, stranger or citizen. If he has thus pronounced the name, he shall be put to death. This is a very strange episode where we have a crime of saying God's name in some way, using it in some way that is deemed completely inappropriate. Not only inappropriate, but is criminal on a spiritual level. And instead of justice being meted out in some kind of divine way, instead the community is supposed to stand up and say, of course it's a form of capital punishment, but to say, this was not the way to use God's name. You have blasphemed God's name. What's also interesting here, in addition to that, is that this man, the blasphemer, as he becomes known, as we discuss him in text, is identified by the name of his mother, which is quite rare. If you'll remember, it said his mother's name was Shlomit, daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. It's very rare for women to be mentioned at all in the Torah, let alone given names. Plenty of times we'll have women mentioned kind of in general, or their position is referred to, but here, in relation to a criminal, we're given his mother's name. His mother's name has been a source of inquiry, of interpretation for the rabbis over centuries. Because it's very interesting. Shlomit, you probably hear, has the word Shalom in it. So you would think it's a name filled with peace, if names are significant in the Torah. Dibri, we're unsure what to translate that to. Daber means to speak, so it could be related to that. But it could also be related to dever, which is a word that should be familiar from the 10 plagues. Anybody remember what dever is? Dever, I believe, is one of the forms of destruction that hits. It's one of the worst plagues, one of the later plagues, and of course right now I'm not remembering the exact one. So dever. So the rabbis played with this, and they said, maybe he was raised poorly, and that's why he's a criminal now. He was raised poorly by his mother, and they said she's named Shlomit Bat Divri because she went around saying hello to too many people. Daber Shalom. She said Shalom. So perhaps she was too flirtatious, or she went around too much in the community, and therefore he had a bad role model. There are other suggestions that perhaps because he was a product of a relationship between an Israelite and an Egyptian, that was somehow a mark against him, and that's why he didn't respect the name of God enough. No matter what, we know that there's something he did wrong related to using the name Adonai. This week, there have been a number of cases of people saying they are doing things in the name of God that are abhorrent, that are cruel, that are sometimes criminal. We have people who are attacking other religions in the name of God, which I would say is a form of blasphemy. And we have people claiming to know something about the miracle of life based on their conception of God, and making laws based on it, which, if they're making these laws in a country which celebrates a separation between church and state, based on their understanding of God, I would also call that blasphemy. I wanted to share with you, to that end, a statement released from an incredible organization called the Women's Rabbinic Network. I am very honored to be a part of this organization. It is an organization that represents the 725 women rabbis that there are in the country at this moment, and gives us a place to talk, to advocate for each other, to support each other. And with the recent attacks on women's rights that have been accelerating over the past few weeks, the WRN, the Women's Rabbinic Network, responded to the attacks with a statement entitled, "We Trust Women." So I wanted to share this with you tonight. Recent legislation severely limits women's access to medical care, from heartbeat bills in Georgia and Ohio to yesterday's news of Alabama effectively banning abortion in every case other than serious risk to the life of the woman. As rabbis and as women, the Women's Rabbinic Network responds. 1. We believe every woman has a right to choose what happens to her body. We also value human life and its potential. 2. The Talmud teaches in Sanhedrin 32b, justice, justice shall you follow. Where two boats sailing on a river meet, if both attempt to pass simultaneously, both will sink. Whereas if one makes way for the other, both can pass without mishap. The pursuit of justice means negotiating between two competing values. By allowing for one to take precedence over the other, both values are preserved. 3, we trust women. The ability God gave to women to carry potential life comes with power and responsibility, and we trust women to carry out the blessings and questions that come with this extraordinary capacity. While not every woman is able to or chooses to have children, it is nonetheless certain that legislation which diminishes women's right to choose thereby questions women's ability to be moral, ethical, loving, and thoughtful about life and its potential. 4, we believe that pro-choice is pro-gender equity. At this moment in time, we must ensure the equal rights of women. After millennia of various forms of subjugation, this moment in time calls upon humanity to affirm the equality of all God's creatures, regardless of gender identity and its presentation. Legislation which limits a woman's right to choose what happens to her body is a continuation of this subjugation. Without the ability to control our own bodies, women are not free, not equal. Our Jewish tradition, this is 5, has wrestled with these questions throughout time. It teaches us that the fully actualized life of the mother is prioritized over the potential life of an unborn child until the time of birth. When, like 2 ships passing in a river, one must yield, the fully manifest life of the mother takes priority even when the nurturing instinct of burgeoning parenthood may be the opposite. 6, as Jews, we are part of a long-standing Jewish legal tradition which parses out each individual case. We reject sweeping legislation which attempts to regulate every situation without consideration of each individual circumstance. It is the Jewish way to use the wisdom of tradition to guide decisions in individual circumstances. We trust each woman to draw on her own tradition and make the best decision for herself with the people around her, her doctors, her spiritual leaders, and her own sensibilities in each unique case. We trust every woman to make the decisions impacting her body. Finally, 7, we value relationships as sacred. Just as women must navigate the sacred trust of pregnancy, we also hold dear the relationships with others who hold points of view different than this one. We welcome and honor thoughtful dialogue and disagreement for the sake of heaven, for the sake of further understanding, and for the sake of coming closer together as one humanity imbued with divinity in all its wondrous forms. Let's vow together that when we use God's name, that it is with respect for each other, that it is in the spirit of trying to understand each other, to trying to honor the sacred in each other, and to trusting each other. As my dear colleagues wrote, we trust women and we trust each other. And we know that ultimately we as human beings, recognizing that divine spark in each and every one of us, can, if we truly want to, make this world a fair and equitable place for everyone. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Amen. So friends, a few announcements before we get to our concluding prayers. First, tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. happens to be our Shabbat morning service and the bar mitzvah celebration of Ben Mercier. Please note, we have this wonderful new tradition of coffee with Rabbi Bellows on Tuesday mornings at 10. There will not be one this coming Tuesday morning, as I will be out of town in an incredible conference called the Consultation on Conscience down in Washington, D.C., with 8 other congregants from CBSRZ, learning about current events, learning how to view them through a Reformed Jewish lens, and how to apply them. And we're going to be heading to the Hill to lobby our legislators as well. Then, next Friday night at 7:30 p.m., we have our Erev Shabbat service, which you are all always invited to. And thank you to the Fishmans for sponsoring our Oneg tonight in honor of Ben's bar mitzvah. Any other announcements that anybody would like to share? Do you want to tell us about what's happening on Sunday?
So on Sunday, it's our last day of school of Kibbutz, and we have a mock wedding in the making. We have a 6th grader marrying another 6th grader. Yeah. And the whole 9 yards, full wedding ceremony with explanations. It's a teaching time as well, followed by a reception with music and food and dancing with the Israeli emissary. So everybody's welcome to come. It'll be a lot of fun. I know you guys, the Mercier family, will be otherwise occupied, and we will miss you on Sunday. But all else, please come. 10:45, the ceremony begins.
It'll be lovely. You're all getting dressed up too. It's wonderful. Any other announcements? Then let's turn together, dear friends, to Aleinu on page 586 in the middle of the page. Please rise. Page 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more, and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. Page 598. In just a moment, if you hear the name of a family member or friend on our Shiva Shloshim or Yortzeit list, and if you are comfortable doing so, you're invited to rise when you hear his or her name. And then we invite you to remain standing until we all rise to join you for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. This Shabbat, we mark the recent passing of Bert Bruskin and Natalie Berman. We mark the Yortzites, the anniversaries of death, for Gertrude Barron, Ida Bittman, Irving Cohen, Esther B. Divins, Gers Fisher, William Bear Friedman, Dennis Hirsch, Nathan Ritter, Rebecca Rosenberg, Morley Safer, Philip Schaftel, Nathan Simpson, Cindy Tillis, Joanne Viator, Nathan Weiner, Samuel Wilkes, and Edward Yudkin. Zichronam Livracha. Who else is marking a Shiva Shoshim or Yortzeit and would like to share a name out loud? May all of the memories of our loved ones always be a blessing to those who knew and loved them. Together now we all rise and we join in the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yitzkadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divarach yirtei v'yamlich machlutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael ba'adala u'vizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah nevarach le'olam lamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudesha b'richu le'elam yinkol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yalma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlam Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'mamav v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom b'romav v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Please be seated. We will conclude with Havana Shira on page 643. Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. 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 Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah.
Well, Chag l'Shalom, and say Chag l'Shalom. May all of your comings and goings be filled with shalom, with peace. Shabbat Shalom.
It's over.
Come join us for a Kiddush out on Main Street. Shabbat Shalom, it is over. I think your friends are coming to pick you up soon, but you have time to come grab a cupcake or something. Shabbat Shalom, yeah.
I gotta leave. I gotta take my meds.